All right, Dave, the Seahawks season's over. 9-8 regular season, playoff loss to the 49ers. What's your general assessment on how the season went?
Well, I just think it was a pleasant surprise for everybody. 9-8, and again, I'm not bragging. Well, sort of, that I predicted 9-8. But the reason why is more about why I predicted they would be 9-8. I didn't think they would go to the playoffs. But I did think that they would have a positive record, and the reason why was because of Pete and John. I just thought those two guys together, 10 out of the 13 years here, they've been to the playoffs, and I just feel like they deserve that credit, that they're a big part of that. And we'll get into this later, but I thought coaching really showed up in the NFL this year. So, yeah, I thought just in general, Geno was a huge surprise. The young guys that we'll talk about were a big surprise, but I don't know, after the season's over, you go, well, why was it such a big surprise? You got one of the best coaches in the NFL and one of the best GMs.
All right, so you brought up Geno Smith. He's a pending free agent. What should they do with him this offseason?
I'm not sure. First of all, I was in the exit interview after the game, and I typically don't do that, but Geno was up at the booth, and he was pretty emotional. Like, I feel like him and the team sort of have an attachment. He's like, they believed in me. I think the hesitation and this is where it's really going to come into play, is if there's a market for Geno, I think people are going to be hesitant, because I think the question is, why did it take 10 years? Where was that before? So I think that in just him having 1 year, some people might think that it's an anomaly. So, I mean, those two things together, I also felt like they got a pretty good deal on DK Metcalf. And so I was surprised at the number that he was signed for. So maybe Geno does something like that, and then they put some incentives in there. But I feel like they're going to err on the side of, I feel like Jody Allen really appreciates Geno because the Seahawks took a lot of trash for that trade that I don't think they wanted to do. And so he kind of didn't bail him out, or do him a solid, but he had a really good year. It was really nice for him to do that, and I think the ownership, and I think Pete and John really appreciate that. So I feel like they're going to be willing to pay a little bit more, and Geno's going to be willing to take a little bit less.
All right, so there are a lot of pleasant surprises on offense. Defensively, a lot of struggles, especially in the run game. What needs to change between the 2022 season and the 2023 season for defense?
I think the consistency up front, especially against the run game. And really, I go back to when you look at that 4-game win streak, which started with Arizona, then went the Giants, and I think then the Chargers, and then Arizona again. Then they go into the game in Germany against Tampa Bay, who was rushing for like 60 yards a game. And they end up putting 160 on our defense. So, I felt like that was the part that was the most disappointing to me, because as far as a team goes, because of the lack of consistency in the run defense. At that point, if you look at that 4-game streak, they were the hottest defense in the NFL. They were 31st in points allowed at going into that 4-game streak, and they're number 2 during the streak. Same thing with yards rushing. They went from 32nd to 5th. Total yards, 32nd to 1st. Passing yards, 26th to 1st. So, you thought that's who they were going to be, and they were improving steadily, but then you get the Vegas game and you get the Carolina game, and especially the run defense, I thought. The other thing is inconsistent pass rush, because during that 4-game streak when they were so hot, they had 19 sacks. So when they got sacks and got pressure up front, it was very inconsistent. That they won games.
All right, so most pleasant surprise on offense and defense for you this year when looking at the team?
It has to be Geno, right? I mean, especially if you look at the numbers for Geno. I mean, first of all, he led the league in completion percentage. He's a Pro Bowler. That's another thing. The other thing is he was throwing the ball 33 times a game. So it's not like he was a game manager. I think he was number 5 in attempts. The other thing is, if you look at the top 15 quarterbacks as far as quarterback rating goes, he was 5th, number 1. Number 2, he's one of 6 who played in every game. Only 5 other quarterbacks played in every game. So, and then he was number 3 in touchdowns with 30. So, yeah, an amazing surprise. I think Geno said he wasn't surprised, but we just had never seen that from him. The other thing, I always mention is that Patrick Mahomes was kind of raving about Geno Smith. He was talking about his tight spiral and how consistent it is. So, and that's one of those things as a player, if you get a compliment from one of your peers, especially a guy like Patrick Mahomes, that's like a Pro Bowl vote there.
All right, so Geno's your biggest surprise. What was your biggest disappointment about this year?
To me, it's always the injuries. Always the injuries, because Rashad Penny looked like at the end of last year and the beginning of this year that he was going to take off. And, maybe if he does, Kenneth Walker doesn't have the year that he does, but I feel like you need a stable of running backs. And for him to get injured again, it really kind of concerns you. It makes you think either they're just unlucky, or I don't know. I mean, I guess I was unlucky. In 9 years, I had 6 years that were interrupted by injuries. And I would say the same thing about Jamal Adams on the other side of the ball. That's the biggest disappointment. I think they would have been a lot better. We talked about this yesterday on Wyman and Bob, that during camp, Jamal Adams was used up in the front 7 a lot. They had plans for him to blitz and be up in the box and stop the run. And he's really good at that. So Rashad Penny and Jamal Adams, and it's not their fault. I just worry that those guys, I think for Jamal, I worry that he plays so hard that his body can't keep up with him. So what he wants to do in his mind, his body can't keep up with, and that's what worries me. But hopefully both of those guys will be healthy.
All right, I'm going to read you off some names here that are pending free agents for the Seahawks. We're not going to talk about Drew Lock or Geno Smith in this, but Poona Ford, Rashad Penny, Austin Blythe, Phil Haynes, Nick Bellore, Bruce Irvin, Travis Homer, Cody Barton, LJ Collier. Are there any of those guys that the Seahawks must bring back for the 2023 season?
Well, it's starting to pop up now that maybe they might need to bring back Cody Barton because of Jordan Brooks, just to see. And I think Cody is a true middle linebacker. He had a very up and down year. I mean, he kind of went the way of the Seahawk defense. And so, but I think he might be somebody that they might need to bring back. The guys that I like, Rashad Penny, once again, just to see. I mean, if he gets hurt again, then that'll be it. But Austin Blythe, I thought was really good. I like Haynes. I think he's a great fill-in. By the end of the year, he was getting most of the reps over Gabe Jackson. Nick Bellore is always good to have on your team. Same thing with Travis Homer. But the other guys, I mean, I think LJ Collier's done. I think Bruce Irvin is probably at, retirement age. Not just for a football player, but like for a human being. No, I'm just kidding, Bruce. Bruce was awesome. He had a nice little shot in the arm from him. And then the other one, Poona, I didn't think he really fit in. He's a good player, but I didn't think he fit in this defense. So, I feel like, some of those other guys bring back. But it's always interesting to me when you have free agents to see how does the rest of the NFL, because we don't know, are we, we're sort of just focused on our team. Yeah, he's a really good player, but does the NFL think that also? And that's what's always interesting about the free agency period.
All right, last one for you, Dave. After watching this 2022 season, who do you expect to make a big jump heading into 2023?
Well, I know everybody's saying this probably, but I'm going to go with Tariq Woolen, even though he had 6 interceptions. And by the way, we're going to talk about this on our show. The point of playing defense is to take the ball away. And so Sauce Gardner took it away, 2 times? He took it away 6 times. Not only that, he blocked a field goal that went for a touchdown, and one of his takeaways was a pick 6. So, and we're going to talk about that on Football 101 this week. So, I feel like Tariq, there was about 3 times where, and I've always put it this way, I don't think he understands how fast he is. So when he closes makeup speed, there was like 3 times where he batted a ball down. And this is how you should do it. Receivers here, you reach with this arm because it's longer. If you reach with this one, it's shorter. So it's always better to reach with the upfield hand. But then there was a couple of times where he did that and he could have got his other hand through and made a pick. And you see him, do this. And so I feel like there was a couple he left on the table, not because he's a bad player, it's because he's a rookie, number one. And I feel like those are the kind of the plays that he'll make next year. Also, somebody talked about he's lean and maybe needs to put some muscle on. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, he's good. He's physical, man. He had a couple of times on the edge where he did a really good job taking on blockers and making tackles. So, yeah, I think, but I think Tariq, as good as he is, he's got a lot of upside.